Cool. We ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, why don't you start with Hamnet because it's such a big deal. It's in theaters right now. Potential Oscar buzz. So,
For sure. So I saw it on Wednesday of this week, and it stars Jessie Buckley, who plays Agnes, his wife, and then William Shakespeare's played by Paul Mescal. This is based on a book that came out, I want to say, within the past 5 years, and it's called Hamnet, which is loosely based on the son of William Shakespeare, who died in real life. His name was Hamnet. And apparently, at that time, like during this Elizabethan era, Hamlet and Hamnet, the two names were used interchangeably.
hmm,
So, Hamnet, his actual son, dies at the age of 11 from what they believe, or at least from the movie and book, they think is from the plague at that time. What his actual cause of death, I don't know, and maybe historians and experts within Shakespearean literature, etc., they probably know more about his death, but uh, essentially, this death created this great mourning and led to the writing and release of Hamlet, which is probably one of the most famous tragedies that Shakespeare ever put
hmm,
on stage. So it starts off, and granted, the real name of William Shakespeare's wife was Anne Hathaway, but they didn't go by that. The book, I guess they called her Agnes, or that was sort of like a nickname, but she's Agnes in the film and in the book, and Jessie Buckley plays her. And it's interesting because I thought prior to seeing this that William Shakespeare was going to be really the main character, but it more so centers around his wife, which is fascinating. So they start off, she's in the forest and she comes from like a family in the forest, and they do medicinal type of work. And I guess they call them like a forest witch, or at least her mother was a forest witch. So she'll take a bunch of herbs and will pretty much like pound them against with like different tools to make into like different pouches and different herbal remedies. And that's what she does. And she meets William Shakespeare in the forest, and he's tutoring or teaching Latin. And they meet and fall in love. She gets pregnant, and then I believe she ends up marrying him when she's 3 months pregnant. And at the time, her family's really pissed off. You cannot, you know, be pregnant with this man you're not married to, etc. So, and at that time, they, would call that, well, I guess that wasn't as, was it as common to be pregnant prior to marriage? Probably not, right?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it probably was frowned upon, but I don't know if it was uncommon.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
definitely frowned upon for sure. And, definitely her parents were not happy about it. But she saw a lot of potential in William Shakespeare. So she gives birth actually in the forest with their oldest child, Susanna, and that's her real name, and that was her name in real life. And then within maybe a year or two later, she gives birth to twins. And apparently, in a lot of his plays, there are twins. So that stems from his own twins. So his twins are Judith and Hamnet. And Hamnet is a very strong baby from the film, and Judith is actually the one that almost doesn't survive childbirth, and she ends up, I shouldn't say childbirth, but yeah, when she was born, like she wasn't breathing initially, and they were ready to just like cover her face and get rid of the baby, thinking that it was stillborn, but she ends up surviving. And they're in the forest, and you learn about William Shakespeare and how he just loves to write and how he wants to be a playwright and how he ends up just developing more of his writings and decides, all right, in order for me to take this seriously, I'm going to go to London. So he goes to London when um, Agnes is raising the children, and he comes back, figure every couple weeks, months, whatever it may be. He's gone for pretty long periods of time for work and for writing these plays. Rumor has it he slept with men and other women when he was away. They don't really explore that in this film per se, but it's more about the family itself and how the kids would want to be, well, they'll play around and do their own, make believe type of playtime, etc. And they showed, which I thought was a really cute scene, Hamnet and Judith switch clothes and they come down to for a meal, and Hamnet's dressed up as Judith and Judith's dressed up as Hamnet, and just the switching of clothes, which was funny because like in his plays it was mostly men playing women, and well, men playing women and men technically. So you get to see like the very light side of their family and how good William Shakespeare was with the kids as well as his wife, and how they had like a very simple but really nice life out, in the rural parts of England. And then winter comes and Judith gets pretty ill, and they show how tight knit the two twins have a bond, Judith and Hamnet. And Hamnet and Judith are laying in bed when Judith is sick. And then the next day, Judith wakes up all healed. And you hear Hamnet saying, like, I will take your pain away. And I don't know, like, if this was true based on like her actually being sick first and then him getting sick, but he doesn't survive, Hamnet. And Judith does. And Judith is the one that they're pretty nervous about in general because she struggled at birth. She has some almost like they're essentially saying that she has a weakened immune system. She's not one who can take the cold and she's more at risk. But meanwhile, Hamnet somehow takes her pain away and the disease goes to him and then he ends up dying. And they show like the big I forgot what it's called, but it's like this round like thing in their neck. And I guess that's supposed to be the plague. I forgot the
Hmm.
term for it, but that's essentially meaning that they were suffering from the plague. And Jessie Buckley, who plays Agnes, is trying every type of remedy and putting cloths to their heads, using herbs, and like they're both like very sick. Finally, Judith gets better, and Hamnet dies in her arms. And it's an absolute tragedy. William Shakespeare arrives and he's in disbelief that his son's gone. And at that point, it's just him. It shows this very dark side for both of them that they have just lost their child to such a traumatic disease. And he takes all of this pain and anguish and writes this play. And they don't really go into like the details of the play, but then you see Joe Alwyn, uh, Taylor Swift's former fiance. He
Hmm.
plays the brother of Agnes. So him and Agnes go to the playhouse and they show up and they see the play of Hamlet. And they show some scenes at the end, and it's just very emotional for her seeing, her son and the actor who plays Hamlet on stage. It's like supposed to be an older version figure, like late adolescence to early 20s version of her son. So it is very emotional. But I will say there are certain parts that are very slow moving, but it is so beautifully shot. The movie was directed by Chloe Zhao, who is one of two women who has won Best Director, and it was produced by Steven Spielberg and Sam Mendes. So
Oh,
you've got
wow.
some pretty big names involved in this movie, in the making this movie. Is it the best story? No, it's a very sad story. I don't know if it's really an accurate representation of what happened, and I mean it's based on a book that came out just a few years ago, but nonetheless, I think they accomplished what they were seeking to do and really to evoke emotion. The writer of the book is Maggie O'Farrell, and it looks like the book won the prestigious Women's Prize for Fiction in 2020. So it's gotten a good amount of awards. This book in general now put on screen. I think it's going to resonate with all of the lovers of Shakespeare literature, and whether it's an accurate story or not, or even just pieces of it, I think it's just beautiful on screen.
So it's a really, I mean, it sounds like it's a really good period piece. If it's up for awards, which awards do you think we're looking at?
So I could see Jessie Buckley definitely being nominated as Best Actress for sure. I'm sure Paul Mescal will get a nomination. I don't know if he's not on the screen as much as her, but
Oh,
both
okay.
of them are really suffering, specifically Jessie Buckley, just her crying. Even the birth scene of her giving birth to the first child, that was pretty traumatic. Her portraying, a mother who's experiencing loss and doing everything she can to save her child, with her working as they call them, I guess, forest witches at the time, but using herbs and doing everything she can to help heal her son, and not being able to control and beat the disease that he's unfortunately um, struggling with, and dies so quickly too, because it almost seems like he's not even sick for 24 hours and he dies, which I don't know how realistic that is, right? You would think that they're sick for a couple of days, if not weeks, but nonetheless, yeah, it's tough. It looks like it was published on March 31st, 2020.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. If it was only published 5 years ago,
Yeah,
it picked up steam pretty quick for it to go into production, get cast, and get a movie made, right?
correct.
Um, and for it to be a bestseller. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Agreed.
Has she written other books, Maggie O'Farrell? Do you know, or
Yeah,
does she just kind of blow up from this one?
I mean, this clearly is a bestseller for her.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
And
just wondering if she had like an established fan base and was able to play that to her advantage, or if she really kind of came out of nowhere, which is neither one is really necessarily any less impressive than the other. I'm just curious.
yeah, I'm not familiar with any of her other books. It looks like they're showing Maggie O'Farrell collection. I mean, this seems to literally be her big hit. I mean, nonetheless, I think it's, if you want to see something beautiful on screen, and it's historical fiction, but loosely based on the life of William Shakespeare, and really how the death of his son led to him writing one of the greatest tragedies and plays of all time, of Hamlet. So yeah,
What was her? Did she win the Academy Award for Nomadland?
yes, that's, you mean,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah, Chloe Zhao, sorry. Um, yeah, because like I watched some of that, but I also watched The Eternals, which she directed, which gets a lot of grief in the MCU like fandom because it's so wildly different than everything. But I can see having watched that and obviously not watching Hamnet yet. Um, I can picture her visual style. Um, she's very visual, very bright, very visual, and everything is I don't want to say saturated. I think that's the wrong word, but it's just very bright and well lit, and you kind of get the feeling that you're kind of there. Eternals was for any complaints anybody could ever make. The movie itself was beautiful, like looking. So I think she's probably got an aesthetic, and I think Nomadland is probably a bit of a different one because it was a borderline documentary, right? Like it was um, that was Frances McDormand, um, but it was sort of a grittier kind of tale, I think, than this probably is.
yeah. And I didn't see Nomadland. I just know that she won Best Actress, and I think in general, this was, trying to recall, that came out in 2021. Was that in theaters, or was that one of those that just came to Netflix?
I think it was in theaters, but it was probably like
short
small
spent.
art house theaters and stuff like that. Like I feel like it wasn't um like the broadest audience.
Sure. Yeah, no, I feel like just being that this is well, loosely based on it's a Shakespeare themed,
Mhm.
it's gonna capture a very large audience if it hasn't already. And I'm curious if it's made like how much money it's made. And from what I was reading, like that, One Battle After Another, and
Yep.
then Sinners are like the three films that are getting a lot of Oscar
Yeah,
buzz.
I would think so. I think those three all make perfect sense. They were all well, I know Sinners and what's the one you just said that I saw that I can't remember the name of
One
already?
Battle After
One
Another.
Battle After Another. Um, I know for sure, like those two are just really solid. I'm trying to see if Hamnet's numbers are even out yet, since this is opening weekend, right?
Last weekend it opened.
Okay. So okay, yeah, so this only has the well, I can't tell. It says opening was 932,000 and gross so far is 2.7 million.
Yeah.
I would guess that this probably wasn't inexpensive to make. Because number one,
All
she's
in the
made a name
chorus
for
was
herself, so she's not cheap. Paul Mescal's not cheap. Jesse
yeah.
Buckley is not cheap. I think I've only seen her in Men, which was really good. She was really good in that. And I know Paul Mescal is he's really up and coming, and but he just blew up in Gladiator 2. I think was his big break.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out because this only shows Box Office Mojo only shows the maybe this must be the whole release. It says 930,000 opening and 2.7 million gross so far.
Yeah.
And that's worldwide and domestic. So I guess this wasn't released internationally.
Correct.
That's
No.
interesting. But yeah, so I mean, depends on the budget of the film to see how well it does box office wise. But it's obviously a critical darling. Did you look it up on Rotten Tomatoes? I'm curious what it got there.
I know it was
It
like a 90% audience.
oh nice.
Oh wait, here,
Let's
let
see.
me double check.
Oh, yeah, 86 critic, 92 audience. So it's pretty much
It's
in
high.
agreement across the board there. Um, and yeah, I mean, reviews like that, suggest that it's probably doing pretty well. And yeah, we'll see what it does budget wise. But at the same time, like they're not looking to. Um, I feel like this isn't a movie that they made to break the bank. This is a movie they made to make art. You know,
I agree.
so yeah,
And tell
we'll
a
see.
story of how, you know, one of the greatest plays came to stage.
Yeah, yeah,
And even just showing the Globe Theater and the way that they did, oh, it was just it's impressive.
that's cool. Do you know? Does that still exist, or did they recreate that for this?
I
I
don't know.
feel like something like that might actually still be around
Yeah, I'm actually gonna see did they shoot. I don't know if
because
they
it would be the same theater basically that they used in Shakespeare in Love, right? Because that
Mhm.
was
No, the film Hamnet wasn't shot at the real Shakespearean Globe.
okay.
Shouldn't have been.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm sure Shakespeare in Love wasn't either, but that's the theater that
Yeah.
that they would have
It
used.
was, yeah, just the way that they did that was just very special. And then people reaching out and had like a real connection and
Mhm.
or bawling in the audience and stuff at the actual play in the film. It evoked a lot of emotions. And I'm sure at that time a lot of people lost children at young ages with
Oh, for sure, for sure.
to
There's just like a million reasons that you could, you
yeah.
know. And plague aside, there's other diseases that they just didn't have cures for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely see. Um,
Without
uh,
vaccinations and things like that, you're done from things like a regular fever
yeah, yeah,
or the flu.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, we didn't have penicillin or
Correct.
Advil or anything that, good. So yeah, definitely, you
You're
know,
done.
yeah. So cool. All right. Well, so I mean, it sounds like because you said the theater you were in was pretty reactive to it too, like the people watching.
Every seat was taken from what I recall that was there. So that was good. It was like granted, it was, midweek.
Uh,
However, I think a lot of people are incentivized to go midweek because of the discounts, but I
yeah.
wasn't crying per se, and I can be someone who connects with emotions, but I thought it was just beautiful to watch. It could definitely be, in my opinion, was a bit slow to start.
Mhm.
I do see this from at least a cinematography standpoint, winning some awards.
Yeah.
Jesse Buckley was great. I mean, Paul Mescal was good too. Who knows?
What
But
about costume design?
costume was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything like elaborate from that era because they're in the forest, so she's in like a
Mm,
red dress and more simple than anything else. It's not like you see the full like Elizabethan outfits like you had seen maybe in like, I don't know, Catherine the Great or any of those Netflix or like Bridgerton or anything like that. Like
yeah. Yeah.
not to that scale because you're not in like any palaces or anything that's at that level of like exquisite
Do you know
socioeconomic
do you know
status.
what year it took place? Like I'm actually notably somebody
Hamnet,
that does not appreciate Shakespeare very much. But do you know about the time this took place?
like
Is
1580.
it okay?
Hamnet year, Shakespeare, Hamnet death. Let me check.
Because I want to say it's the 1500s.
It definitely is. 1596. Hamnet
Okay.
Shakespeare, William Shakespeare's son, died in 1596, and apparently the play was written like in 1598, and then I think like 1601 it came to stage, something like that.
Okay.
So within like 3, 4 years later.
Yeah.
So 1590s, 1580s and 1590s, I guess it shows because it shows when she's pregnant. So I think they got married in the 1580s figure
Yeah.
and 1590s.
All right, cool. Well, then it sounds like it's a every if maybe not everybody should watch it, but most people should watch it. I think it probably there's some people that wouldn't love it, but um it sounds like I said from the Rotten Tomato score, from the critic score, or from the audience score, um yeah, it
Yeah,
looks like it's pretty solid across the board, so definitely worth a watch.
for sure. And
Um,
it looks like even from the critics I'm reading, and I remember watching a YouTube video, they said the score was something that
mm,
was worthy of just even like watching for the music too. I think they said like they had certain songs that were used in other films, from what I recall. Yes, yes, here we go.
okay.
The score for Hamnet by Max Richter heavily features his well-known piece On the Nature of Daylight, a composition that has appeared in numerous other films and shows including Arrival, Shutter Island, Handmaid's Tale, and The Last of Us.
Huh. I'd have to hear what that is. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, so I guess it's
Um,
that particular piece.
I feel like it's hard to nominate it for an award if it's been in so many movies.
Right, right.
Like that'd be weird. Um,
For sure. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just a great weaving of talented people between Chloe Zhao and then the fact that both Spielberg and Sam Mendes were involved with producing this. Paul Mescal is impressive. And I had, again, also, I had only seen Jessie Buckley in two things. I saw her in Wicked Little Letters with Olivia Colman, and then I saw her in Women Talking, which was a mishmash of different actors. I think Frances McDormand was also in that, ironically. But I watched it. That wasn't a film I really liked all that much, but that was also a period piece too, and that came out. Yeah, was it Frances McDormand? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Frances McDormand was in it. Jessie Buckley was in it. Claire Foy, Rooney Mara. Yeah, it was like a pretty big cast. So, yeah, that's another like period film So, but that one takes place in America versus this is in Elizabethan Europe, specifically in England in the late 1500s. So, but yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it, and I think it was just more visually. I was really impressed by what they did. And you're right. It may not have been like such a big budget because of the people that were in it, but in terms of just how they shot, there weren't any like crazy special effects or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
From that side of things being very expensive.
The only thing I could think of that they really would have spent on is if they really did rebuild that theater. That would cost a little bit, and not necessarily crazy expensive because it was all wood, right? Like they're not building something totally incredible, but at the same time, you got materials and time and all that jazz. I could actually see the budget being, somewhere between 2 and 5 million. So if it has a couple of good weeks, it'll probably do okay. I don't think Paul Mescal or what's her name? Jesse Buckley. I don't think either one of them commands a huge paycheck yet, despite being very talented. Like I don't think they're demanding like $10 million a movie or anything. So, that like I said, the budget is probably somewhere um, between like well, probably around $5-7 million maybe would be my guess. Um, so it'd be interesting, and I don't. I feel like they probably didn't spend on marketing because I don't remember seeing a whole lot of advertising for this. Um,
I saw it in previews, but yeah, same thing as well. I don't remember them marking that much. Actually, so production budget for the film, Hamnet was reported in a range of 30 to 35 million.
Holy crap.
Chloe Zhao
Wow.
director previously mentioned the budget for Hamlet was about 6 to 7 times of that of her film Nomadland, which had a budget of 5 million. Interesting.
Okay. I don't know where they spent it in Nomadland. They were just following cars around. Like, but
Yeah,
uh but yeah, that's interesting. I'd be really curious where all that budget went.
right. And I'm sure like yeah. Oh, she co interesting. Hamlet is the historical drama co-edited and directed by Chloe Zhao, who co-wrote the screenplay
Hmm.
with Maggie O'Farrell. So it's good that she had like a large involvement with the film
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool. All right, cool. Well, if you like period pieces, if you like Shakespeare, or you like, you know, just good movies, go check it out. So I will take us to a movie that is probably not considered a good movie. I saw Five Nights at Freddy's 2 today, with my oldest and my youngest, or my oldest son and my youngest son. Um, and yeah, I mean, we had a good time with it. It's if you this one's great because this is definitely not the same as what you're looking at from Hamnet, right? We have a 12% critic score, but an 88% audience score. And it's a 5.8 on IMDb. The first Five Nights at Freddy's, I think, is a 5.3 on IMDb. So, like, it's pretty consistent, you know? And one thing that I think is interesting is when this film was over, my theater wasn't packed, but my theater, the one I go to, is rarely packed. But people actually clapped at the end. Not my kids. My kids were a little less enthusiastic about it, um, but they at least have some understanding of the game. And I would tell anybody that either hasn't seen the first one or has seen the first one and wants to see our critique of it. We've got an episode, and I don't remember what episode number it is, but we had our resident Five Nights at Freddy's expert Sydney on, and she knows all of the history. And I think she did a pretty good job actually tearing the first one to shreds. So she would probably eat this one alive. But um, point being, this one feels like it's kind of on par with the first one. If you saw the first one and enjoyed it, you'll probably see this one and enjoy it. It's the same cast of characters. Basically, you have Josh Hutcherson, Elizabeth Lail, and Piper Rubio are the three main characters. Um, we've got some fun cameos in there. McKenna Grace is in it for a little bit. I feel like her name is on the rise. Like she's in more and more stuff right now. But her part's actually not that big. And then what else? You got Wayne Knight plays a science teacher, which is kind of fun to see. And one of the cool things is that in the first film and in this film, like the real, like true bad guy is played by Matthew Lillard of Scream fame. And so in the second movie, there's a character that was his original business partner, and they were able to get Skeet Ulrich to play that character. And if you know Scream, they are the spoiler alert, they are the killers in Scream, the combined murder duo. So it's really kind of fun just to see that happen. He doesn't have a lot of screen time. I think he's got maybe 5 minutes of screen time. But I think they're setting up another film. And I will say before I start talking about it, um, it ends very abruptly. Like it just stops. And I was like, okay, well, there is definitely a Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Like there absolutely has to be because it just stops. But to get into the film, like, for me, I gave it like a six. My oldest gave it a 5.5, 6-ish, and my youngest gave it like, he's got a weird rating system. He said a three, but he actually enjoyed it. So, what did he say? He said it started at 10, and he would add or take away things depending on the film, like the way it did things in the film, which I think is a fun way to look at it. And he ended up at three. But he at the same time he said he enjoyed it, but I think my kid's interpretation of it, or enjoyment of it is based on seeing it versus the games, and both movies have taken a lot of liberties with the game. So um, I think
Is this
it
based on a video game?
it's based on a very long running series. I think there's 8 or 9 games.
Uh,
They're not particularly long, and they were very much they're horror games, very much based kind of on jump scares. And
oh,
if you watch the first movie, I mean, you're basically stuck in what amounts to a haunted Chuck E. Cheese, right? Like it's called Freddy Fazbear's, and it's haunted because Matthew Lillard's character used to kill kids there. Fun story. And to hide their bodies, he would hide them inside the costumes of these characters. Well, um, they basically haunted the place after it got shut down. So, you know, the story I think has been changed a little bit from the movies. I think, from what I understand, at least a little bit, especially in the second movie, a lot of these characters were supposed to be a little more protective than they were of one of the main characters, and they're a little more evil, and the story doesn't quite follow
game.
the games. But and so I think those that are hardcore fans of the game and were looking for a true adaptation, I think are going to be more disappointed than somebody like me who has no real knowledge of the games. I've never played the games.
Oh, but your sons have.
I don't even think they've played them. So this is one of those games that was very, very, very popular on YouTube channels. So YouTubers would play it all the time, react to the jump scares, all this. So kids would be watching other people play these games. And there's whole videos out there about the history and the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, because it's a little abstract in places. A couple of the games are a little weird and kind of outside of the main story, and possibly outside of the canon storyline and all that. So it definitely takes liberties. This one, I think, like I said, if you like the first one, I think you'll like this one. But we see our main characters again. They're trying to recover from the first film. Basically, it seems like it's been a little bit of time, a small period of time. They are coping with recovering from all the things that they saw. We know that Elizabeth Lail's character, Vanessa, is the daughter of William Afton, played by Matthew Lillard, who was our main bad guy. She's trying to get out from under the shadow of her father. Um, and ultimately, they get pulled into a second building that was a Freddy Fazbear's, and it was actually the first building, where with the opening scene, I think it's the opening scene. a little girl gets killed there, and it it gets swept under the rug, and that building gets shut down, and so most people don't even know it exists. To the point where, like, our main character, played by Josh Hutcherson, his name is Mike, doesn't know it exists. His sister, who is the main kid from the first film, doesn't know it exists, right? So they're completely unaware of this other place where there was bad things that happened, because that one kind of nobody talked about. But when it happened a second time at a bigger venue, it became a big deal. And that's where the first movie takes place at the second Freddy Fazbear's. So we go back to the first one. The little girl that was killed is the only person haunting that place, but she's super pissed, and like she's really mad at adults because the opening scene is her at a birthday party, and she doesn't really have it seems like her parents aren't very interested in what she's doing. Right? There's nobody there. She's at a birthday party.
What
Um,
year is this supposed to take place?
it takes place in the 80s, I think, is what it is.
Okay.
But it's not really it doesn't feel like, when you look at Stranger Things, like Stranger Things is like it
Right.
screams the 80s. It feels like a period piece. Whereas this just kind of takes place in in that time zone, time frame, but it really is sort of abstract. It really could be the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. You wouldn't really know. Um, and so you have these two little girls, um, and one of them is Vanessa, who is the younger version of our main like adult female character, and then this other little girl whose name is Charlotte, I think her name is, and she is the one she's watching the show, and Vanessa's trying to, like, she's really nice to her. She's like, come back to the party, have some cake, let's have fun. And so the girl, you can see everybody having fun, and she's sitting kind of on the edge of the table. She's just not, doesn't quite fit in. And she watches this other kid walk to the back of the restaurant, and she sees like a guy in a Freddy costume, Freddy Fazbear costume, kind of guide this kid into the back of the building. And she's like, "What the hell?" And so she goes and tells every parent. She's like, "I think something bad is going on at the back." And every parent kind of pushes her to the side. They're like, like she's annoying them. So they're not buying what she's selling. So finally she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go back there and look. And so she goes back there and she finds a kid that is passed out. And we only see the back, but we see the guy, whoever it was in the Freddy Fazbear costume, is still wearing it, but without the head. And he's like sharpening a knife, and he's gonna do crazy murder stuff. So she grabs the other little boy and starts running out. And the scene ends with her coming onto the stage, and she has the little boy, and still nobody's paying attention. And so she screams like she's like it's like a rage scream, like she's pissed that nobody listened, and she's got this kid. And then she falls to the floor, and you see she's actually been stabbed in the back like a couple of times. So this little girl dies, and she is now the one haunting that place. And her main like issue is this: she's basically angry at adults. So her little spirit is like, fuck them adults, because they were not good to us. Like they will let you down. That's her thing. And so the rest of the story is very, Five Nights at Freddy's, where the animatronic robots are possessed by one thing or another. Um, and I mean, there's a few fun kills in it for as far as horror movies go, but I think like there's only three or four. Like it's actually not super
High kill.
violent. Yeah. But Wayne Knight's character gets killed in a really brutal way. McKenna Grace's film crew goes down real fast in a brutal way. They're supposed to be like ghost hunters, and they get lured to the original Freddy Fazbear's to make a one of their ghost hunter episodes, whatever it is. And they go in there, and of course everything is possessed and evil, and they kick the bucket. And it's like it's really interesting because like I said, casting McKenna Grace and putting her name on the front of things is almost a bit of a casting stunt because you're putting a bigger name in there than I think, or at least for the younger crowd, than probably anybody else in the film. Like most people, unless you're, and I think it's older people now, know Josh Hutcherson from the Hunger Games,
Right.
right? And he's been in some other stuff, but he's not a big name, and especially not to young, teens right now. They're not looking at Josh Hutcherson as the guy. And Elizabeth Lail's been in some stuff, and she's, you know, girl next door, kind of pretty, but she's not really been in a bunch of stuff. So you put McKenna Grace's name on, who she's doing music that teenagers are listening to. She's in a bunch of shows that teenagers enjoy. Like she's doing all this stuff that would draw the teens in. So I think like they put her name really kind of in front of this, even though she's only got 5-10 minutes of screen time, maybe. Um, but it's fun, and it gets you can see where this is another film where the critics are going in judging it like it's like they're looking at an Oscar contender when they ought to be looking at it like exactly what it is, which is basically like kids B horror. Like it's not great. It's not like Event Horizon or something that's totally brutal. Um, but it's also not super tame. Like so if you go by what is advertised and what it is, it did a good job at that. And I think the people that would be more critical of it would be the people that like my kids are more interested in the original story, so they have something to critique. But all in all, I had a good time with it. I think it'll do well at the box office. The first one had a small box office release and then went to Peacock. I think it released on Peacock at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah, it was really weird, and I don't know what the reasoning is, but it was successful enough in some capacity that they not only greenlit a second movie, but they definitely greenlit a third movie. So, like I said, with the way that it ends, it is very clear that they're intending to make a third movie. Like there's no question. So, all in all, I mean, it's fun if you've got teens, and they drag you to see it. I don't think you'll be miserable. It's, I don't feel like it's necessarily a film for adults to go see. And which is another reason I think probably critics are harsher than the audience score because like if I go critique it, part of my critique would be, how much did the audience enjoy it, right? And I'm watching through my kids' eyes and through the other people that are there that know what they're watching and they're having a good time. So to me that, that's a pretty successful movie. So yeah, I think like I said, I don't think it's made for the general like adult crowd unless you grew up on the games and then it might be. But
games
if
come
you
out in the 80s, Kevin?
what's that?
Did games come out in the 80s or how far back?
No, I want to say they were the early 2000s. Let me see. Oh shit. The first one was released for Microsoft Windows on August 8th, 2014.
They're
So
computer games?
yeah, for Microsoft, and then apparently they put them on Android and iOS
Okay.
that same year, so they were pretty well available.
All right.
And then the second one was released in October of 2014. The third one was January of 2015. So like they actually came out in pretty quick succession. Yeah, but they were wildly successful. I think they actually came out at a great time because this is 2014, especially was like the height of YouTube gamers and young kids kind of watching. So I think, yeah, it was really, really popular back then, and I think they're just cashing in on it now. But we'll see. I think it'll do well enough at the box office. Like I said, the third film is supposed to go into pre-production in January. Um, and I would expect if that is the case, it could come out the same time next year, to be fair, the third one. Um, although I don't know if they'll bother with December with Avengers Doomsday coming out in December of next year. That'll eat up a lot of box office, I think. So they may want to either come out earlier or later than that. Um,
Director's a woman.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't heard of her, but I don't know if she did the first one or not. I know the writer is actually the guy that wrote the game, so it's really interesting that they kind of changed up the um, kind of the story a little bit because he is one of the original writers, but they can do whatever they want. And okay, this director, she also directed the first one.
Correct.
Um, so yeah, like I said, it's fun. It's fun, and if it's what you're in the mood for, I think you'll enjoy it. I think if you like the first one, you'll enjoy it. Um, but at the same time, wouldn't be for everyone. Like there's certainly people um, that wouldn't enjoy this. Your highbrow, snotty people won't have a great time with it. But it was a lot of fun. Like I enjoyed it enough that I had a good time. Like I didn't want to walk out. I didn't hate it. So um, yeah, good time. All right. So do you want to stick with your Paul Mescal bent and go on with normal
I'm
people?
literally on a Paul Mezcal binge this week, right? So my friend that I went to the movie with said, "Have you seen him in Normal People? That's where he got his start." And I said, "No, I haven't," because the only thing that I had watched Paul Mescal in prior to this was the second Gladiator, Gladiator 2, which came out last year, around this time actually. So I came back and within, I guess, 3 days, and it's only one season, 12 episodes. Each episode's about a half hour. Normal People. Him and Daisy Edgar Jones were in this show, Normal People, which I believe is also based on a book. And that was a Hulu original series. And it's about two people who grew up in the same town in Sligo, Ireland, who come from very different groups and circles in high school. Marianne, who is played by Daisy Edgar Jones, is from Money, and she is a bit of a loner and does her own thing. And she's got a very fiery personality and challenges teachers and wants to kind of just go to the beat of her own drum. And then you have Connell, who Paul Mescal plays, and he's the soccer star, very popular, has a lot of friends. And Connell's mother is the cleaning person for the Sheridans and their big house, and that's where Marianne lives. She apparently her father's deceased. She lives with her mom and her brother, who are both verbally abusive, and the brother is even physically abusive to her. You come to find out throughout the series. And she's really struggling with her home life, and in school she acts up, and every so often Connell will go to the home for the Sheridans and pick up his mom and drive her back. And they see each other at school, very small talk, don't really say too much to one another, but there's a certain like fondness between them, and he likes her and finds her very bright and insightful. And even though she's got this fiery personality, he comes to really like her, even though he doesn't admit it, obviously, given that he's in a very different social circle than she is. And one day the two of them are just talking, and he asks like if you fancy me, and she's like, yeah, I guess I could. And they share a kiss, and it's her first kiss. And then she said, do you think we could be together more alone? And he said yes. So the next time that they hang out, she goes to his place, and then they start having this secret affair where they're sleeping with one another. So it becomes like, I don't want to say like 50 Shades of Grey, but it could be more of like that to some degree, but without like the whole BDSM, but just young love and a lot of sex. And they have this secret relationship when they're in high school, and that's like the first like 2, 3 episodes. And then they have like a falling out because he asks another girl to, I don't know if they call it prom, but like the senior dance. And yeah, then they don't speak. And then they end up going to Trinity, both going to Trinity College and see each other maybe like a year later. And she's dating someone. She's has a bunch of friends and is very different socially in college than where she was in high school. So that's very different. And then her and Connell connect again. They're, I guess, freshmen at Trinity College. She's dating someone, and then she realizes how much she loves Connell, and they reconnect. And throughout the series, they are back and forth in this relationship, and then dating other people, and then dating each other. And it's one of those things where it's like they are each other's true love, but yet they for different reasons keep on having to separate, whether it be her going to study abroad and then she's with this very abusive partner. And then they're falling into like bad habits and he doesn't come from money. So he unfortunately has to spend one summer and go back to Sligo because he can't afford to pay rent to stay in Dublin until he goes back to school and then works again and can pay the rent. So during that point in time, she's dating someone else. So they're constantly going back and forth during college. And then finally, when things like start to settle down and he goes against his brother or her brother, who's abusive and breaks her nose at the end of the series, he's like, don't you ever touch her again. And she comes to stay with him. And he gets this really great opportunity where, being that he is with a very masculine circle of guys in high school, he has this soft side to him and he likes to write and read and he studies literature at Trinity College. And I guess it's Trinity College or Trinity University. It's the big university in Dublin. And he ends up getting accepted to this creative writing program in New York. And at the end of the show of the series, the series, which they don't allude to there being a second season, Connell decides he's like, I don't know if I want to go to New York because I don't want to do this without you. And Miriam says, you have to, like, this is your dream. He's like, but we'll be apart. And she's like, well, if it's really meant to be, we'll meet up at the end and I'm always here for you. So you're led to believe like she's going to stay in Ireland and he's going to go to New York to pursue his dream in creative writing. And that's how they leave it. But it's just a very beautiful love story. There's a lot of ups and downs too, but a lot of it's just as a result of hardship and how the ebbs and flows of life goes. Sometimes when you get different opportunities, sometimes you have to make hard decisions and leave people that you love to pursue your dreams.
So it's definitely a drama.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel like I know it was in 2020 and when you look at it on um I think it's on Rotten Tomatoes, it says 2020 to present, but there's no indicator that they're making another season, especially with these two careers taking off. So does it end in a good play? Like, does it end in a way that the story feels done enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're led to believe like he's going to be in New York, she's going to be in Ireland, and they may make it work, or, it's going to be more of a trials and tribulations. And if they're meant to be, they'll make it work down the line. They're never really fully together for a long period of time.
Is
Due
it a
to
show that they could have made more seasons of if they wanted to? You feel
possibly,
like, yeah,
possibly, yeah. Because he's gonna, I mean, you could have done something where he's in New York and she's in Ireland, and then maybe she moves to New York and he wants her to come to New York, but she says that's my life is here.
yeah.
Life is that is, you're pursuing a career hopefully in writing and literature, and you should go do that in New York.
And that's on Hulu, right?
That's on Hulu.
Okay.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I mean, a lot of it's, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it's sex, like them having, and she has a lot of issues. I was doing some research. They don't allude to it, but there are some theories that she is autistic.
The
Marianne,
character or
her character,
okay, okay.
is autistic, and he is severely depressed at certain parts. One of his friends from high school ends up committing suicide in one of the later episodes. So he has a lot of anxiety and goes through depression, and even just him unraveling his life growing up, with a single mom who the woman who plays his mother is very young. So I'm assuming she was a teen mom who gave birth to him. And yeah, They don't come from a lot of money. She's cleaning the Sheridan's house, and you see her home, which is this beautiful mansion. And then in a later episode, they have a house in Italy in the countryside somewhere, which is stunning. But he loves her, cares for her, would never lay a hand on her. And she has a lot of mental health issues where she is used to being treated poorly and then has very poor choices in and boyfriends, with the exception of when she's with Connell. Abusive partners. Two of them in particular that are violent towards her.
That's never fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like a solid drama though.
Yeah.
And with both of these two, if this was 2020, this was really before either of them did anything. I'm trying to remember. There was a film that Daisy Edgar Jones did that was kind of like her
Where the
big.
crawdads sing.
Was that her? Okay.
Where the
Yeah.
crawdads sing, and then she was in Twisters.
Yeah. Thought there was one before that too, but I might be thinking of Where the Crawdads Sing. Um,
She was the main character in that, and that
yeah.
got a lot of.
Yeah, she definitely got a lot of buzz for that one. I thought she did a movie where she was a musician too. Well, people, nope, I'm a crazy person. I think I'm thinking of somebody else, but
Yeah,
yeah.
they're both doing pretty well, and he's really blowing up the past. I mean, he was in another movie with Josh O'Connor that just came out a couple months ago that I want to see, called The History of Sound, which they're both a pair and fall in love.
Hmm.
And I believe that's also, yeah, two young men during World War One set out to record the lives, voices, and music of their American countrymen. Yeah, so LGBTQ love story.
Well, it sounds like it fits your current binge of Paul Mescal stuff.
I see that, and then I'm good with Paul Mescal. No, yeah. And then he's supposed to be in that Beatles movie that's coming out in a couple of
Hmm.
in the next year or two, the one that you, me, and Andrew were going back and forth on. Him, Harris Dickinson, Joseph Quinn, and I forgot the last person who was included in that, where they were each playing the Beatles, or a member of the Beatles.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way about the Beatles as I do about Shakespeare. I'm just that person that
Yeah.
isn't necessarily enamored by either one.
He's going to be
Um,
playing, wait, Paul Mescal's playing Paul McCartney, a major series of the four interconnected Beatles films directed by Sam Mendes.
okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good.
April 2028. Oh, that's going to be great.
It's a long ways off.
I know. Oh, and Barry
But
Keoghan, that was the last person.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's awesome. That's a
He's
good
awesome.
cast though. All right. Well, I will move us on to Netflix, and there is a documentary on Netflix right now about this guy named Sean Combs, who is also known as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him. It's a really interesting documentary. A
Kind
lot
of
of stuff that
scary.
I didn't know. Even from current issues, like there's a lot of stuff I just didn't know. I didn't really follow the trial super hard. To be fair, I was and really still am on the he's probably guilty train. He probably did all this stuff. Um, and this is definitely, I have to say, a biased documentary. It's produced by 50 Cent, who is not a fan of Diddy. Um, and at the beginning and the end of every single episode, there's 4 episodes, but the beginning of and end of every single episode, it has this thing that pops up on the screen. It says in 2025, Sean Combs was tried in federal court on charges including RICO, sex trafficking, and violations of the Mann Act. He was convicted on 2 counts of transporting to engage in prostitution under the Mann Act and acquitted of the remaining charges. And it says this on all of them. And then later on in an episode, there's a longer one here. See if I can read it for you. It says more than 100 civil cases have been filed alleging sexual assault or related misconduct by Sean Combs. As the airing of the documentary, 77 cases are still pending. In a court filing, Mr. Combs denies ever being alone with one of the ladies that accused him or engaging in any sexual misconduct. He vehemently denies the allegations, calling them false and salacious. And most cases are still pending. Um, the woman that he is seen on film that we like the film is famous. Like he beats the hell out of her in the lobby of I don't know if it's a hotel or his like condo, but he her name is Cassie, and he beats the hell out of her, and she's the one. And I'll talk about it a little bit, but she was in something that the guy involved was called freak offs, which are just horrible. And both her and Sean Combs deny this, um, that she was involved in those at all. And then, we get the same bit of information. And he was sentenced to 50 months in prison with time served. So he's in jail right now, but there's pictures around right now that show him not necessarily living the worst life in jail, right? So the documentary, it actually opens up with this footage that was taken right before he got arrested, so like 6 days before he got arrested. And it's all footage that he had recorded. And I guess the story behind this footage is he was trying to make his own, um, not documentary, but film his own footage to show that maybe he was innocent or whatever, try to get his own side of the story. But he failed to pay the guy, which he has a history of. So the guy took this footage that he had and sold it to 50 Cent. So that's how it ended up in this documentary. And I think this is the stuff like there's some articles out there about Diddy being pissed off that this stuff is out there. Um, but it definitely um, it definitely shows like him being furious at his lawyer for not handling the PR the right way and all that. So Jeff definitely just starts out, setting him up as an angry person, right? Which, to be fair, as the documentary goes on, we definitely see a history of that. And so the first one, most of the first episode is about his time as a kid, and this is all stuff that I didn't know. So he actually grew up not poor. He grew up in Harlem, I think it was, but he wasn't hurting for money because his dad was a drug dealer. So his dad had made a bunch of money, and so growing up, he there was parties at his house all the time, even as a kid. And even though he was raised by his mom, um, there were adults at these parties all the time in his home. They would tell him and his friends to get on their little stage and dance or whatever, and they don't really allude to whether that was more adult than it should be or not, but just the fact that you're telling kids to dance on the stage for adults, even if it's innocent, is a little weird, right? And so, you've got that. We find out that his mom was very hard on him. She beat him a lot and beat him pretty hard. One of the guys they're interviewing, and I can't remember the name of the guy. Um, I'm trying to see. I think Tim Patterson was a childhood friend of his, and they've got him on there talking about how he hung out with Diddy as a kid, but he was like, I didn't have shit, and Diddy had, he had money and he had all this. And as they start to show, um, Diddy as a young kid, they point out really that like he wasn't a big tough guy. He was a very nerdy kind of scrawny kid that just happened to come from this background that he came from. So his dad's a pimp, like not a pimp, but a drug dealer. There was parties at his house. His mom, you know, enjoyed living that life, and she beat him a lot. So, um, he wanted to be tough, but he really wasn't a tough kid, right? And so he goes out and he ends up getting himself involved in um, sort of what is it, party planning is not the right way to do it, but like an event coordinator. And so he gets into that gig, and in his early 20s, he promotes a celebrity basketball game. And I guess what happened in this game, there was overcrowding, and ultimately 9 people died at this thing because of the overcrowding. It wasn't violence like gang violence or anything. It was overcrowded. People got hurt. And I guess um, he was able to ride the publicity of that. And a lot of the early parts of this story are his ability to basically follow the creed that there is no such thing as bad publicity, right? So he had this event where a bunch of people died, and so he very publicly came out and was like, "This is a tragedy." Got himself in front of cameras, all this stuff, even though he poorly planned it, all this stuff. So he rode the high of these people's deaths to help himself kind of take off. Um, and one of the things they talk about too is his mom was very violent to him as a kid. She came out and said, some things kind of against him after this event, and he publicly beat his mom, and nothing ever came of that. And so, as this episode goes on, we see that you know he starts to have a history of violence with partners, right? And he definitely puts himself in a position of power with everybody that he can. Um, and he had this other thing too, where he, as he got more and more important, he would try to date the people that his basically his rivals were dating. So if there was somebody that he kind of wanted their job, their position, he would try to date the person they were dating and like play mind games that way. Like it was a real trip to see the way that his mind operates as this stuff goes on because as you can see as you watch this documentary as it goes on, he's a great manipulator. Like he really manipulates these situations, puts people in positions that are very uncomfortable so that when they're like um there's a guy talking about how Diddy just called him into his office and he walked in there and there's a girl going down on him in the office just out in the open and he called the dude in basically so he could see that he's this powerful to just have this girl doing it and nobody cares, right? Like just it's weird power plays, but stuff that would get into people's heads, right? And so that is the majority of the first episode talks about that. When we get into the second episode, um, it really, really, really dives into his rivalry with Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur. And in the beginning, he actually enjoyed Tupac's music, and he had Biggie Smalls up and coming, and he decided that they should go and visit the West Coast and listen to Tupac's music. And at least in the beginning, it seems like everybody was a fan of everybody. Like they were all cool. Everybody got along. And this is a rivalry. I actually kind of wish Andrew was here, but this is a rivalry that I don't know a ton about. I know where it ended, right? That's pretty publicly known. But it seems like everybody kind of got along at first, and then what happened is the way the story is told that Biggie started to feel closer to Tupac than Biggie wanted, and so or than Puffy wanted, and so he started to get jealous, and so he started to push them apart, and as things escalated, they became um, actual rivals. And at one point, there was basically a standing order that Diddy and Biggie were never to step foot on the West Coast, or they would be shot at and killed. Like that. That was like out there. And so ultimately, there was an award show that Diddy went to, and so they went out there. They did this award show. Everybody got super pissed off, and then cut to um, uh, um, Tupac's death in 1996, in September of 96, which uh, uh, Diddy publicly says that he had nothing to do with, but there's a lot of people and a lot of circumstantial evidence that suggests otherwise. But he's never been charged, he's never been formally investigated or anything for the crime. but most people think he had something to do with Tupac's death, and then which ultimately led to Biggie's death. And so one of the things that happens, and they talk about in this documentary, is it really feels like um, the choices that Diddy made, whether intentional or not, really pushed um, to the death of Biggie. And so once Biggie died, he immediately came out and just like this accident that happened when he was younger, rode the uh, the PR about Biggie's death. And so now all of a sudden, in all the stories he's telling, he was Biggie's best friend, period, hands down. So everybody's buying this story that they were best friends, even though they weren't. Like Diddy was promoting him and doing all that, and they didn't necessarily hate each other, but they were not best friends. But the story that he was putting out there was that they were best friends. And so, he rides that high and then his album comes out and I think he won a Grammy for it and he's got the song in there that he does with Sting that is like I'll be missing you and it's he's dedicated it to Biggie Smalls and um he talks about Biggie's funeral and he puts all the money into Biggie's funeral and all that. Um, but so he's writing somebody else's death and takes the PR and builds himself up even bigger. Um, and so after this, he starts dating this girl named Cassie. And she's, seems like she's a sweet girl or whatever, but he gets her all wrapped up in stuff. And so the story that they get from this guy and they interview him a few times throughout this third episode. He had somebody come in and he would watch them have sex. And it was weird. It was long. It was like days at a time, like 4 days at a time. And it was always on the anniversary of Biggie's death. And so it was, uh, it was really bizarre. But you start to see the stuff that we saw outlined in some of the recent allegations, right? Where the guy would say, talk about how there was baby oil and all this weird stuff. And it was just like really weird. And they called them freak offs where he had to, for 4 days do all this weird stuff. And it was like this power play because he's paying the dude. So the dude is just a chess piece in this, but he is just making Cassie do all this stuff. Now, again, as we see later on, she denies this. She says it didn't happen. Diddy says it didn't happen, but more than one person says it happened, right? We get into in the third and the fourth episode, we start to see stories of other people that he's hurt along the way. So when his music production stuff was starting to fall off, MTV was big and American Idol had come out. So he rode that high and he created a show called Making the Band. And I think they did it 3 times. One of the groups was Danity Kane. And Aubrey O'Day was one of the main people in Danity Kane. And, she starts talking about the way that he would talk to her and the messages that he would send her were wildly inappropriate. And she was like, if you got a letter like this from your boss in the corporate world, done. Like that guy would be fired, lawsuits would be crazy. But she was too uncomfortable because Diddy was great at the power play and, threatening people. And so, all this stuff goes down. At some point, one woman really comes forward and alleges the sexual assault. And that starts a cascade of more sexual assault lawsuits, right? And now there's a man that comes out and says that he was with Diddy a few times and he was drugged and he believes he was, raped and all this stuff. So it's like, hey, there's crazy, crazy stories. Um, but one of the things that like felt extra sad is they have interviewed Aubrey O'Day at one point, and she's talking about how some woman called her up and she was like, I was at one of Diddy's parties, and on a video screen, they had video of her essentially passed out, and Diddy and his like security guard were, doing horrible things to her. Um, and you know, Aubrey O'Day said she's like, I don't remember this happening. She's like, if I was drugged, if I was drunk, whatever. She's like, I don't remember it. So she feels. So she said she didn't get on the sexual assault like charges train because she was afraid if she went out and accused him but didn't remember it, that if she was seen as making it up, then they would have something to go back and start looking at these other hundred cases and say, well, they're making it up too. If this woman lied, then these people could lie. So she even though she believes and knows that she was at least sexually harassed, if not more, she was too afraid to basically steal the thunder and the authenticity of these other women's stories. So, she's got this history and she is broken from it. Like you can see when she's talking about this and she's reading some of this stuff. Um, but she didn't believe that she could stand up for herself. And if she did, it could potentially damage the stories of these other women. So she stayed out of it. And then in the fourth episode, we start to get to the trial, and they start talking about his team of lawyers, and what was absolutely crazy to me and wild to me is they did not have a closed jury for this case. They were allowed to go home every day. They were allowed to they weren't supposed to interact with social media, but nobody could stop them, right? And so Diddy's lawyer team, they went out and did a ton of PR and publicity about how these stories were false and all this stuff. And you could see as they were interviewing some of the jurors, you could see that they were influenced by the stories that were out there. You know, besides what they saw in the courtroom, they were definitely influenced by this other stuff. Um, and so yeah, it was a really, I mean, like I said, it's certainly biased. 50 Cent is not a fan of Diddy's. He would love to see him go down. As a matter of fact, I saw something today where it said that 50 did an interview, but he would only do it on ABC because he knew that ABC is one of the only networks they play in the prison that Diddy is at. So he would only do the interview because he felt like Diddy would see it. Like there's a chance that he would. So like there's definitely animosity behind making this, and it is certainly, like I said, biased, but the information that's there and the stories that are told and the stories that are very public, all
They'd like be
feel like,
friends.
what's that?
Ever. Weren't they? Didn't they used to be?
I don't I don't know if they were or not. Because I mean, I know ultimately 50 Cent is on kind of the West Coast side of things, right? Which is now, Dre, Eminem went from he's from Michigan, but he's with Dre, who is with Snoop and all these people that were around Tupac. Like Dre produced California Love, that is one of Tupac's biggest songs. Like so they're all together over, here on the West Coast. And then Diddy was very isolated out there on the East Coast. So I don't know how close they ever were, but he definitely financed this and put it together. Even like I said, even went as far as buying any available footage that they could use. So, take at least some of it with a grain of salt, especially the stuff about maybe his history and his life growing up and stuff. But at the same time, like you look at, there's so many allegations and so many people saying the same thing. that it just feels like it has to be true. And maybe in a courtroom, maybe there's really is not enough evidence. So maybe they had to. I don't know how they came to the decisions that they came to in the courtroom. Um, but he only got 4 years, and some of it was time served, and so it'd be really interesting to see you know what happens when he gets out and what he's able to do while he's in there. There's a long history of musicians and music producers in prison becoming very successful while still in prison for reasons A, B, and C. So um, we'll see. It is an interesting documentary. I actually wish they had gone into the current courtroom stuff a little more. It definitely focused on his past. There was a lot of focus on the Tupac and Biggie stuff, which is fine. There's a whole episode about it, but um, the most recent stuff and the stuff around the courtroom and even post post him getting charged, like there's less information there, and it'd be nice to see something a little more current. But all in all, it's a really interesting documentary. And like I said, especially for somebody like me who is kind of on the periphery of this and kind of knows the story but doesn't know the story, it's really fascinating. So I definitely say to watch it. There's no Rotten Tomato score on it yet, but it's almost an 8, I think, on IMDb. I want to say it's a 7.6. Yeah, 7.6 on IMDb. So it's doing pretty well. Um, I feel like it's something that won't get nominated for any kind of awards, even though it's a solid documentary. But because it's so biased, I even if everything if every fact in it is true, like it was definitely made from a place of bias. And like I said, putting that same message at the beginning and the end of every single episode, they're like just hammering home how bad this guy is. And again, they may not be wrong, but definitely aggressive in that way. But all in all, it's a good documentary and really interesting. So that is that. If you're interested at all, it'll be a good watch. It's 4 episodes. They're each about an hour long. I think a couple are a little longer, a couple are a little shorter, but I think I watched it all in one day. So not a hard watch, as most Netflix documentaries are. They're usually 2 or 3 episodes. Um, but that's what I've got
Right.
there. You 2 weeks ago saw a show on Broadway.
Yeah, yeah, I saw Art on Broadway, and it's a play with Neil Patrick Harris, James Corden, and Bobby Cannavale. And I went through the Broadway lottery, went with a friend of mine from work. I wasn't sure what to expect. It was actually one of the worst plays I've ever seen. And I think it's something that's been bringing in a good amount of money, and it has been expensive because of the three men that are starring in this
Yeah,
show.
for sure.
But it's a play about a piece of art. Neil Patrick Harris's character buys a plain white canvas for $300,000, and it's in his home. Bobby Cannavale, they're supposed to play three friends, and Bobby Cannavale's character is a bit puzzled. Well, not even puzzled. He cannot understand how someone could spend that much money on a piece of art, let alone a blank canvas. And he thinks that his friend is absolutely crazy because there's nothing on it. Whereas he's like, you don't notice like the little lines. He's like, no, there's nothing on it. And James Corden is a character who just says things to appease his friends without creating any tension. So he's just very non confrontational. And you see these three guys have dialogues. Well, first it will be one of them and then two of them together, and then eventually all three of them. And it all takes place in a living room, and they bring this big canvas out, and there's just nothing on it. And the fact that Neil Patrick Harris is so attached to this painting that he believes has everything and is so worth extreme value. And James Corden's like, yeah, I see the movement, and he'll just completely lie to appease his friend. And Bobby Cannavale's character is fuming and thinks that obviously James Corden's just kind of playing along and just to not say anything. And his friend is absolutely nuts for putting money down for something that's just nonsensical, essentially. So, yeah, it was just a very weird play, way longer than I mean, it was, I think, like 90 minutes, no intermission. Maybe a little
Wow.
longer than that. Felt a little longer than that, honestly. And it was cool to see them live and have dialogue, but it was just it was a play about a plain white canvas. That's really what it was.
It
At
sounds like the Emperor's New Clothes almost. Like, you've got this thing that everybody is told is amazing, so they're on like Neil Patrick Harris is basically the Emperor, right? Like he's got this thing that is absolutely nothing, but is told it's everything, and so he's on board with it.
He's the one who's bought it and
Yeah,
his home, and he's like, look what I bought. And Bobby Cannavale's character is like looking behind the painting, like staring at it, and you're laughing because he's like beyond confused what his friend just spent $300,000 on. And there's some funny moments, and you see like James Corden being like the goofball he is, and he's like, I think you first see him, he's on his hands and knees, like crawling on the floor, and of course people are laughing because he's a funny guy, James Corden. So it talks about that he's about to get married, and I think they feel like he's kind of become a bit soft since he got engaged or at least started dating this woman he's about to marry. And yeah, so this dialogue revolves around a piece of art that they all feel very differently about. I think it's closing soon. And I don't know
yeah,
if that's because it's bad or because they just signed a contract for like a short-term run, because I mean those three guys are busy enough with their own
yeah.
other ventures.
Well, this originally came out in 98,
Yeah,
1998.
it's a revival.
Yeah, and it won awards. Alfred Molina was nominated. Looks like it took home the Tony Award for Best Play that year. Um, but the cast back then was pretty great too. Alan Alda, Victor Garber, and Alfred Molina. Those guys are no small hitters. Like those guys are even back then were a big deal.
Sure.
So great cast back then too. I'd imagine that because it's a play and because it centers on this, piece of questionable art, it's definitely about the performance of the individual actors, right? I mean, that's what you're
Yeah.
really focusing on. Um, so yeah,
It's a French comedy about friendship, taste, and ego.
yeah. So yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
it's certainly something that I don't think would ever be made into a film. Like it's something you can only experience on Broadway, whether you like it or not. I think that's the only place you're ever going to see it.
Mhm.
Or maybe, potentially in like a college production or something like that.
Yeah.
But it won't be something that gets made into something that's more accessible. This actually says it's an hour and 40 minutes with no intermission. That's crazy. That is a
Yeah.
long.
It's long, and I was nodding off at certain parts. I was like, this is just not, I knew it was at least 90 minutes. It was just not ideal. And I saw it on a Monday, which is a day of the week where very few shows run. So yeah, my friend liked it. I was kind of like, yeah, it's fine, not my favorite, because I just don't want to be a hater. But yeah, I couldn't wait for it to end. It was cool
And
to see those guys live perform live, and they're funny and all, but just the actual subject matter, Kevin, I wasn't sure. Like it's just about I knew it was about three friends having a varying opinion on a piece of artwork and how it kind of showcases their friendship and such. But this was just weird. It's like they chose like a random topic to make a play about.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely the play itself. I mean, I guess you would consider it art, right? Like it's up to interpretation a little bit, right? Like there's certainly going to be people that enjoy it and people that enjoy it maybe because they like Neil Patrick Harris so much or because they like Bobby Cannavale so much or James Corden. Like there's a draw there that is the actors. You see, but you got to see all three of them, right? When you went,
Yep.
that's good. No understudies or anything funky like that. Um,
On a Monday.
but yeah, that's interesting. It's got a lot of clout, but maybe was not so entertaining. I'm
Yeah.
actually super curious about it. I kind of want now. I want to see it even more, just to see.
And I rarely give bad reviews about Broadway shows. I feel like most of them I really like, Broadway plays and musicals. This was
Mhm.
just really bad.
All
I
right.
thought that
Well,
actually about Queen of Versailles too, the one with Kristen Chenoweth, which by the way,
mhm.
update closing in January.
This one that you just saw looks like it closes at the end of December or the 19th of December.
That one was probably planned though, I feel.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas
Yeah, I
Queen of
have to assume it was a
Versailles,
short run.
yeah, whereas Queen of Versailles, like not selling well and not getting good reviews, closing in January. And I saw it in October.
Yeah, that's a bummer. You like we talked about that one. You'd expect that one to be really good, and
Steven
it just
Schwartz, guy who
yeah,
did the music for Wicked.
yeah.
Fun fact, guess what song he's also known for writing?
Hmm.
Disney and Disney song,
I don't know.
Colors of the Wind.
Okay, okay.
Another hit.
Yep.
And then he makes this shit.
Uh, all right. So art on Broadway, if you're in New York and you've got the last week to spend, don't go see it.
That's it. No,
Yeah.
sorry.
So cool. Well, that's I think everything we have. I was actually going to say really quick, and I won't go into too much detail, but I talked a couple weeks about a show called All Her Fault on Peacock, starring Sarah Snook, Dakota Fanning, and some other people. Um, I actually finished it because at that time I think I'd only watched the first episode, and it was really like good. Uh, Great series. I really enjoyed it. Very plot twisty, so I don't want to get into that too much. But the main gist of the story is Sarah Snook's son is kidnapped. They don't know why. They're not. There's no ransom. There's no nothing. And so it's a spiraling story of whose fault is it? The family is is bursting at the seams with issues, and everybody kind of turns on everybody. And it's definitely a crazy, crazy story. Um, it gets very murdery at parts, but it was actually really good. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it. So you've got Peacock. You're looking for a relatively short drama that definitely is a single season, right? Like there's no reason this would get a second season. Um, a really good watch, so you can get your beginning, your middle, and the end. Lots of twisty turny stuff. The redhead girl, I can never remember her name, but she's on the rise too. She was in the It movies. She was the younger Jessica Chastain character.
Oh, she's
Um, yeah, I can't remember her name, but she's great in it. Um,
oh,
but
Sophia Lillis.
yeah, so yeah, she's really good. So and everybody does a great job in it. I think it really is good. It's intense, and just quality storytelling. I with Sarah Snook and Dakota Fanning as the two big names. Although I think Dakota Fanning has a much smaller part than the advertising would suggest. Um, with those two, as your main characters, you'd expect it to be pretty good, and I think that it is. So, if you got Peacock, give it a watch. But otherwise, I don't have anything else. So, with that, then, I will say thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.